Yeah, it's a treat to be in this space for a talk. We've also just like coming out of COVID, being able to be in a real space, and although a lot of you have your masks on, it's really wonderful to see faces up here who I'm going to have a conversation with. We're slowly getting back to normal, but yeah, I'm really excited to have more events over here and like these windows open up. Our current resident right now is like doing performative sound work, so it's getting interesting, and I'm excited to have more of these events. But yeah, so thank you, Catherine, and your team here for setting this up. So like the structure for tonight amongst the three of us is gonna be fairly loose and conversational. These two host a podcast together, so they can really like let things flow. And we're just gonna like, I'll do formal introductions in a second, but Prinston and I have sort of premeditated some questions and themes and shared those in advance with Robyn. But as soon as we started talking, it's like, no, we'll do this on the record. It'll be a nice way to just like let things unfold that way. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones too, which is great. I'm Anders. I'm one of the studio managers at BKLYN CLAY. If you haven't seen the show yet, check it out. It's up through Saturday. I'll go into the formal introductions. Robyn Gibson is a Brooklyn-based multidisciplinary artist and curator. She was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, and received a BFA and BSBA from the University of Louisville in 2014. She completed her MFA in painting from the New York Academy of Art in 2018. Her work has been shown extensively in New York, Florida, Kentucky, and Indiana. She has recently guest curated 2 exhibitions with the Jargonist online project space and co-curated an exhibition at the New York Academy of Art. She has an online solo show titled Broken, which is now live at jargonist.org. Check it out. Prior to becoming a BKLYN CLAY artist in residence, Robyn completed residencies at the Armory Art Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the North Louisiana Virtual Residency hosted by the Ross Lynn Charitable Foundation and the North Central Louisiana Arts Council. During this residency, Robyn created new work for a 2-person show with April Fitzpatrick. Their show is titled We Can't Heal What We Don't Reveal and can be viewed online at nclacgallery.org. Through March, it'll be up. So I mentioned this, but on top of all this, Robyn recently launched a podcast with Prinston called the Red Door Podcast. So they're in their 3rd episode. They've been great so far, and I'm excited to listen to the rest of them. The topics range from like Bigfoot to art to many things in between. Prinston Nnanna is a Brooklyn-based artist by way of Houston, Texas, working primarily with charcoal, coffee, and acrylic inks. He earned a BA in arts at Texas Southern University in 2016. While enrolled at Texas Southern, Prinston studied abroad in Paris, where he focused on cultural studies of the African diaspora, which has a great impact on his work to this day. Mr. Nnanna earned his MFA at the New York Academy of Art in 2019. Nnanna's work has been included in various group shows, including galleries and institutions such as The Hole, the Adana Gallery, the Flag Art Foundation, and the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts, and the Texas Southern University Museum. In 2019, he had a solo booth with The Hole at 154 Art Fair in London. His work was also included in the 2020 Spring Break Art Fair. Prinston was a finalist for the 2019 AXAXL Catlin Prize exhibition and won first prize for the 19th annual citywide African American Arts Exhibition in 2017. His work is included in the Texas Southern University Museum collection and the Davis Museum at Wesley College. we're in great presence. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, we'll leave room for questions at the end, and we can like go back to slides as well. Yeah. It'll be about an hour, but we'll leave plenty of room for questions. Yeah.
Right, you ready?
I'll kick it off with the first one. The residency is 4 months.
Yes.
Which goes really fast.
Yes.
You started with very clear intentions for like concepts as well as processes that you were going to take on. And one of them was breaking these vessels that you were focused on throughout that time. How did that idea come about and when?
Well, I don't know if I can pinpoint exactly when, but I know it was before getting before even seeing the application for the residency. So in my drawing practice, what I do is I do a lot of erasure. So I naturally destroy what I make. And so I'm thinking about, rebuilding oneself and healing and what that looks like, and all of the trauma that you're going through in life, and the things that you pick up and the things that you want to kind of throw away, and how all of that sort of rebuilds you. And when it comes to breaking the vessels, I was making vessels already, and I was thinking about how does my drawing practice translate into my now fairly new ceramics practice. And it kind of just made sense for that to be that next step. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I was talking to another friend of mine about it, and I'm sure she was like, yeah, you should just go ahead and do it, because that's what I do. I talk about some of my crazy ideas with a lot of my artist friends, and they're like, just do it. And so that's pretty much how it started, or how that idea came about. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know exactly. I remember. Okay, here's what happened.
Oh, I'm glad I asked. I'm glad we're recording this.
So I was talking to a friend. What happened was I'd done a performance at the Armory Art Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, is where I had a previous residency. And so during this performance, I had built my head out of clay, and I punched it. And
as wet clay.
Yes, as wet clay.
How hardcore is this?
Wet clay. And so I was punching it, and then I was just gonna leave it, but I had a conversation with my friend Nikki at the time, and she was like, yeah, you could, if you wanted to, go and kind of salvage some of these pieces and see what you might want to do with them. And so that's what I did. I took some of these pieces and I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And I carved a piece of the face that had all of these punch marks in it. And I put terracid all over it because that's what I was using. And I was still trying to figure out, what to do. I put it in the kiln, and it exploded. So I had several pieces, which it really didn't matter anyway, because it was already pieces that I'd already punched and carved it off this thing. So it really, whatever, Everything was experimental. I wasn't really worried about it. So after it exploded, she was like, you can actually put these pieces together using, I think I was using palladium, because it was a palladium glaze. Because it was shiny, it was still kind of dark colored. So I was like, okay, let's try it. So I had to kind of finagle it and put it in the kiln as best I could. And they ended up, fusing together. I was like, what else can I do with this? And so I was thinking, can you make things explode in the kiln, purposefully? Do people do that? And I was like, well, why not just break it when it comes out of the kiln? And so that's kind of what started this journey Man, haven't thought about that in a while.
I didn't know that there was like a precursor to
I
the
forgot there
ones.
was a precursor.
That's cool.
It was like, because I knew that it was a natural next step, and I had already thought about the putting together, the connection between the erasure, but you unlocked a memory there with that question. Awesome.
That's dope. Is it any significance behind the gold
So
and the pieces? Yeah.
So there's some finished ones. I mean, there's one right by your side too.
So
But
with the gold, I'd seen it before. My friend Nikki, who I had met at this residency in Florida, told me about the Kintsugi method. And I'd seen the gold, and I thought it was a beautiful way of making something broken into something precious, right? And so thinking about, because to me what the brokenness of these objects is talking about me going through different kinds of traumas and dealing with them and trying to face them. I write about them. I don't really talk about them, but I definitely express it all in the work. And I think what the gold's is like a precious metal, and it's beautiful, it shines, it's, it's joy-giving when the way it, reflects light. And when I think about that, I think about beauty and scars. And I've realized too, a memory came to me at one point. My dad, he had a liver transplant when I was really young. And so one of the things that I remember about his body is he had a very distinctive, deep scar. And so when I was a kid, at first I was kind of scared of it, but after a while, it just became part of his body to the point where I couldn't fathom it without this scar. And it became kind of cool, it's like a war wound almost, but also something that was to me precious after seeing it, because it reminded me of his survival and going through something so traumatic as to a liver transplant. That's a major organ. And he lived however many other years after, 20-something years after having this really invasive surgery. So thinking about physical scars, emotional scars, but also how precious those can be and what those moments actually can mean. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you talk about scars, and because I still have scars, but it's a precious thing about memory that we have. So, yeah. When I first seen these, it reminded me of eggs or orbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask, what's the name of it and why did you make them?
So I call this triplets,
Yeah.
because they're literally 3 different pieces. So I made a piece, and this was the first mold that I made, the slip molds, and I was actually working with Gus. It's the first mold that we made, and technically it's the second, because the first one failed epically. I just remember it rising to the top and thinking, I don't think it's supposed to do that. And Gus was like, I've never seen that happen before. And I'm just thinking, it would happen to me. And so this was the other piece that I wanted to cast along with it. So the first piece was kind of like a picture, and I was thinking about this like a drinking orb, or a drinking gourd. And I just liked the way it felt holding it in my hand, and just kind of feeling organic, but also obviously made. And after casting it, so this is it actually. The first cast didn't go well. We couldn't get it out of the mold, and I ended up breaking it. This is the second cast. Also didn't go quite as planned, but I decided that I break stuff anyway, so why not start with a broken piece? So took it out, it literally split in half. So I took both pieces and I fired them. And this is how it came out. It just did its thing, and I ended up putting them back together in the method that I would use if I had broken it. And this was the first. And so I just wanted to kind of see what would happen. And these next two were the survivors. So it's like the mode, after we figured out what happened, we, sanded down where we needed to sand down, and it worked. And so after seeing that it worked, I was like, okay, this one's broken. I guess it's time to break these as well. And so I just wanted to kind of let them all have a story, but they all came from something that did not start out as it was planned. But I felt like they were all still beautiful, and they all had their own story. And even this one here, it was experimental. I was trying to figure out what kind of terracid we wanted to use. I was just trying to see the colors and what would happen. Mm-hmm. But I like how it mingled with the gold, so I kept them all together. So as much as it was an experiment, it's like they're just still these living things to me.
I do sort of like envy that you have this like detachment built into the process, because ceramics is like, a lot of people here involved at Brooklyn Clay in some way. It's like such a frustrating material. Mm-hmm. But like one day I was looking at you with a finished piece, like it might have been the one with like the tall neck back there. It was like such a beautiful form, and then I was like, she's gonna hit it with a hammer. It's like there's already like this nice detachment from it. Yeah.
I think that came from my my graduate experience, because like I said, I didn't start erasing until grad school. And I don't know if I told you this, but when I was in undergrad, I was actually making 5-inch by 5-inch paintings, really detailed. And I enjoyed the process because I liked working small, but I was so, set on this drawing. It had to be right, it had to be perfect, that I was stressing myself out. And then when I ended up going to grad school, I saw all of these amazing artists who were doing all of this stuff that was like, made my small paintings. I was just like, these don't compare. Like, it's not this, like, even though I'm thinking I'm being very detailed and very tight, everybody was making all of this amazing work, but they didn't seem so stressed about it. And I'm like, you know what, maybe painting, I need to take a break from painting. And not just that, I need to take a break from feeling so married to every mark that I make, because it was making me, it was holding me back, and it was making me feel a way about myself. Like, as an artist, I didn't feel like I was good enough. And so once they started drawing in the way that I was drawing, I was just, motion became what it was about for me. And then that natural detachment kind of happened because I started erasing stuff. Even the stuff that I liked at some point, it was gone. I took a picture, so it technically did survive, but it's no longer there on the canvas. It's gone. And so I think being able to translate that into this practice, it's not that I don't like what I make, it's just I can detach myself from it long enough to see what happens in the next round. Yep. It's not like I never want to, it's not like, oh, I don't care. It's more like, ugh, how else can we, what else can we do with it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Did you, I want to ask you about ashes and urns, because a lot of these are urns.
Yes.
And like so like you touched on like the fact that all of your work pretty much, whether it's like the ceramics or the 2D work, is very tied to your experience, your persona, your narrative. How do urns like fit into there? Where did they come in?
Actually, the urns
find
are
some urn images too. Well, yeah,
that's the main one. Yeah. Like that's the first one I hand built, and then these were like these lidded urns here were the ones that I threw. And And so the idea of urns came fairly recently, also before I started at BKLYN CLAY, but I knew I wanted to make a bunch of vessels. And I knew that I wanted them all to have a purpose. Because right now, at the time, I was just making forms, and the forms themselves were just vessels, but I wanted to make something that is a teapot, I wanted to make a decanter, and that was actually what my first one was. And when I thought about urns, and we put ashes in urns, our vessels go into a vessel. But I was thinking about letting go. As much as I destroy in my work, I have a hard time letting go of things, of past mistakes, of past people, of I literal actual objects. I'm kind of a pack rat. I wouldn't call myself a hoarder. I'm not quite there yet, but I get it honest. My grandmother and my mother are the same, and we used to live in the same house. So just imagine 3 people who collect things throughout the years. Our houses. Anyway, I digress.
Wait, what do you collect?
It's not even just like collections. It's more like, oh, this, yearbooks, cards, even paperwork. It's like, do we really need this from like 10 years ago? But we keep it. And so it's what makes it hard for me to even clean my room. It's like sometimes I'll touch a thing. It's like, oh, but I remember when I first got this, when I was at this place with this friend of mine, and it's Robyn. It's a plastic bottle. You can throw that away. It's fine. So, but I might need it for a project or something. Yeah, you can get another one. So
I can kind of relate to that. Okay. Okay. All right.
Sorry. Long story short, I have hard time letting go. And so I was thinking about even as people pass and what that means. And as you go throughout your life, parts of you grow out of other parts of you. And so I was thinking, parts of you die because of the fact that you can't be who you are now if you don't transform. And so the whole idea of an urn, or making a series of urns, was really putting to rest parts of myself that I was holding on to, so much so that I wasn't allowing myself to grow past it. And so this is literally only the beginning, because I haven't really gotten to the point where I want these to go. Mm-hmm. I want to really dive deeper into that that sort of self-growth, and that sort of putting to rest the things that I feel like are holding me back. Yeah. Because I do it to myself. It's not something that, these are the voices in my head that sometimes are my own voices, not necessarily something that I've got from somebody else. Although they really could be. But I want to make sure that I do the work, and that's part of the work for me. And I felt like that was really important.
Yeah, totally. It ties in, the metaphor ties in with your like exploration, self-narrative, ties in so beautifully. Mm-hmm. And like it gets back to the preciousness thing for me too, and like it's very intentional, because like when you pick out an urn for somebody, it's very specific, and there's only one, and it's forever. And yeah, it's got this very like special quality to it. Yeah. You touched on it, like the body as a vessel, and then going into a vessel or an urn. I'm wondering, like, do you consider these urns to, well, first of all, are any of them like intentionally made for holding a specific thing, whether it's like ashes, or is it the metaphor that counts here?
For now, like, I will get more specific.
Yeah.
Right now, honestly, I was, with the ones that I threw, I was like trying to figure out how to throw an urn, honestly. It's just like, Liz, how does that work? Let's figure it out. Sarah helped me a lot. So with those, they're more, they're not really as specific.
Yeah.
Except I did, over New Year's, me and two friends of mine, what we did was we wrote down blessings and then things that we want to get rid of for 2021 going into 2022. And all of the things that, negative thoughts, negative emotions, all of these things that we wrote on our to burn lists, we took them up to the roof. It was a damp night, so it wasn't as dangerous as it sounds, and we burned them. And so I collected the ashes and I did put them in this small urn.
You did?
Here. I did that earlier today because I meant to do it before the show. And forgot, looked up, and they're behind glass. Who's gonna know? So I did do that tonight, and I burned them with that intention of putting those in these urns. But I feel like as I go on, each urn that I make will be something specific to an emotion, a time, maybe even a person that I feel like I need to, let go of, a situation, writing about it, burning it, putting it in the urn, and letting it go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and because I know I was talking to Prinston, well, it was a while ago, but you had asked me about like the process, I think, of how I thought about burning. I forgot. What was it?
It was me, right?
It was.
The process of burning the...
Yeah. Did you ask me about that? Am I tripping? I might be tripping.
Oh, maybe it was the idea I had when I said that I always wanted to like burn some of my work.
That's what it was.
And then
My
like
bad.
stop it before it's completely gone.
Yeah.
And then frame it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I did have a question, like, because I remember you were saying about it's hard to let some things go. Did you ever make a piece or a vessel and it was very beautiful, and then you're like, man, I have to break this though? Like, how do you do that?
So it wasn't, man, I have to. It's more like, okay, so.
Oh, you should stop.
So I will say this as an example. So I have a piece, Brass Knuckles.
Yeah, show it.
It's called Brass Knuckles.
Yes, that one in the middle there. So it's actually, I feel like it's unfinished because there was a point where I was making it and I was thinking, oh, this is beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, I'm like, it's not done. I gotta break this. Like, I'm gonna see what happens. But not every piece feels like that to me. I feel like, so I don't know if I feel like they're speaking to me and telling me what they want, or I'm just making it up as I go. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I do believe that my work tells me what it wants, especially with the drawings, because sometimes I don't know where to stop, and my drawings be like, you need to quit right now because you're doing too much. And so I'd be like, okay. And so with this one, it was like, yeah, it's time to break it. So I actually, after the show's over, the first thing I'm gonna do, wrap it up and hit it. And so we're gonna break that bad boy.
This one right here?
Yes.
Can I have it?
I don't know about the word have, but we can we can negotiate. But yes, when it comes to breaking pieces, at first it kind of was a let's just see what happens, but after a while it became this is what is needed. And then the pieces that I didn't break, I felt like the forms were what was taking precedence. So like Elder, I feel like is on here as well.
Yeah.
with these. So actually both of these with matriarch and elder. Elder is like, it just felt like a being in and of itself. And something about breaking it seemed like it just didn't make sense, because it just felt like even just the process of making it was all kind of organic. I had no idea what was going to happen. I started out with like a football shape, and then it started looking like a pelvis. Next thing I know, it had, a back to it. Next thing I know, everything changed from one layer to the next, to the point where even the process was like, the process itself is what's giving this thing life. So I just didn't feel like, or the piece itself didn't need to be broken. And with matriarch in the middle, I had thought about breaking that one, but after it was finished, I was just like, I felt like a connection to it, and I just wanted it just as it was. And after having, because we labored, me and Anders labored over the terracage that's on this piece, and just thinking about anything going wrong with it. I think that was another reason why I was like, nah, we're not touching that. Yeah. But I liked the line, and I liked what was happening with that piece so much that I felt like, it's not asking for it. But Brass Knuckles was asking for it, so now we gotta do it. It was getting aggressive, so I gotta fight back.
I like that you described elder as like it started to feel like a being, because this is a good transition. I wanted to ask about like, so this like metaphor of the vessel, like the pot being a stand-in for the body. They're both vessels. They're like synced up in that way. But you sort of like make that apparent in a couple different ways. And one of them is through like the posture that these things have. And there's also something I was thinking about is like the way we talk about pottery is also linked to the body. So there's like foot, lip, shoulder, neck, and all that. And then you sort of, it seems like you lean into that by giving some of these, like, especially matriarch, like the first time I saw that, I read it as like almost like a robe, and the way that it's folded and where a head might come out of the hole, or like clavicle line and shoulder blades and that kind of thing. Yeah. And then like elder, like I wish we had a profile shot, because it's doing this sort of like elegant like neck back, like almost like a figure skater type thing. But yeah, I was wondering like, you sort of said that this is happening in the moment as you're working, but is it now becoming an intentional thing where you're like leaning into it?
I think the idea is intentional, but I never know what the actual work is going to look like, if that makes sense. So it's like, I know so I think about my own body a lot, and I've been doing that since I've been making vessels. So it's like, whether they have wide hips, or like this mug to me looks like it's got little arms coming out of the sides of it, or it could be like they're just weird hip shapes and then the arms are here. I don't know, but it was just something about having something bulbous and thinking about the roundness of, what are the round things about my body that I like, and thinking about how to put those in the work. And I usually do start rounding things out and then bringing them back in. And once it might start differently, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I never know where it's going, like, ever. Like, I had no idea, like, except I will say Ashes to Ashes was a drawing before it was an urn. I was actually doing another drawing for this residency with my friend April that you had mentioned. And so I started out with a pineapple because the pineapple is a symbol that I got from her that relates back to healing and mental health. And then I erased it as I do, and I drew an urn, a vessel. And I was thinking about what does that mean for me and because I was kind of fleshing out the idea of the urn. And this was the vessel that I drew, and then I erased that, and I ended up drawing the body. And so the piece was called Pineapple Vessel Body, thinking about the pineapple as a form of healing, the vessel as our actual body, and the body as vessel. And then the way that the drawing is constructed is to look loosely like a pineapple. So it's all of those things in one. And so I wanted to see what that would look like in 3 dimensions. And so that's one reason why the pineapple is on top. And another reason is just the fact that it just came into being. And I think it's also cool that artists can do that. You can start with an idea and bring it into life. Totally. I think we got a magical sort of very interesting talent that we all possess, which is really cool. Yeah. Did I answer the question? I feel like I was just talking.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, just a little while back there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's good.
Fine.
Yeah, I have a question. Wait, is it a question? Robyn is an amazing poet, a great one. And you're a great draftswoman. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love your mark making skills, but I see you put some of your drawings in your vessels. Do you ever think that you're gonna put words in them?
It's not out of the realm of possibility. To be honest with you, I never thought about it. The writing that I have thought about to go with the vessels themselves have always been the writing, burning, the ashes, the urn, you know? And I have incorporated writing and text into my drawing, so it does make sense that it would be a natural next step. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. Honestly, at this point, it's just allowing my brain to think about ways of doing it. Like, do I want to etch it like this? Do I want to actually write the text with my hand and then somehow, like a decal, put it on? Do I want to, write in like an underglaze or terracage? It's like now it becomes a question of how do I want to, experiment with the text in that way, and it's just another step. Because I don't stop. My brain is always going.
I know.
Just like yours, your brain is constantly going. So I just feel like it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's definitely something that can happen.
Okay. I got another question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that Augusta Savage is one of your favorite artists. And I was wondering if you were inspired by her or pull some things from her collection as far as like form comes in.
I feel like if I do, it's more subconscious because the artist, I have another favorite artist who's a ceramicist. And when I'm thinking about my ceramics, I'm thinking about her work more so because when I was in grad school, when I was trying to do more figurative work, I was thinking more about Augusta Savage. But I guess I'm not thinking in that same way because I'm not thinking about the literal body in that way. I'm thinking more about vessel and form. Although when you think about it, it is kind of the same anyway. But I'm still thinking about it in different ways. And so the artist that I'm looking at, who I'm really inspired by, actually. Her name is Magdalene Odondo. She had a show at Salon 94. 94? Yes. Sorry. I can't believe I'm like blanking because like I love their space. Like, and anyway.
94 was a long time ago. No, kidding.
Yes, I was quite young. Anyway, but I was alive. Okay, anyway.
I can't resist just like terrible jokes, sorry.
But I would say that any sort of influence would be more subconscious. However, since Magdalene Odondo is at the forefront of my mind when I think about vessels, when I think about elegance of form, I feel like she would be more of a conscious, what do you call it? When somebody's influence. Yes, that's the word. Sorry.
I didn't want to skip across the opportunity to ask you about boxing.
Oh, yes.
Because we were looking at this earlier. Yeah, the imagery on that one. Where does it? You have a history of boxing. That's something that you do outside of being an artist.
Yes, I haven't. Regrettably, I'm hoping to get back into it this year. I haven't really boxed since COVID hit. Even a little before, because I had lost my job, and so I couldn't afford to go to the gym, and then all of this stuff. But boxing is something that brought out a piece of myself that I didn't realize was there. There was a confident woman that I met when I started boxing. And I say that because I was learning something new that I wanted to learn. A friend of mine told a friend of mine found the class, and he was like, yeah, did you sign up for it yet? Because we were going to go together. And I was like, yeah, no, I haven't done it yet, but I plan to this week. He's like, oh, man, you ain't going to do it. Almost immediately, I signed up for that class. And I feel like he knew what he was doing. I feel like he said that because, like, I'm that type of person. You tell me I'm not going to do something, I'm going to show you just how much I'm going to do it. And so I got into the class, the first class, and was hooked. I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely new, but I was having so much fun that I didn't care how silly or idiotic I might have looked at the time. I was just doing something that I knew I wanted to do. And that was the first time in a long time, probably since I was a kid, that I felt like, yo, you can do this and you can get better at it, and it doesn't have to be perfect right now, you know, right? And I was giving myself permission to just learn something without feeling like I had to know everything, and without feeling like I had to have all the answers right now. And that level of confidence was what I brought with me to my project in grad school, because like I said, I was starting to feel some type of way about myself and my confidence. And so when I started when I picked it back up, when I came here to New York, it found its way into my work. I found my voice in that work because I realized what that boxing and what that experience did for me. And so it's like boxing to me is also just empowering. I only sparred just a little bit, but when I was on the bag, I felt like, yo, I'm really somebody right now. And then, like, don't tell me that I'm doing well, because now I'm just gonna just keep doing it like I really know something about it. And I was like, what, 6 months in? Thinking I'm Layla Ali, but yeah. It was all good. Plus, I'm from Louisville, Muhammad Ali, that's our people. So, well, not like, we're not related. I didn't want to say it like that, but I mean,
but when you're at the bag and you're really feeling
I'm
it.
Ali at that point. But yeah, so having that come into the work and then seeing what that actually meant, why was boxing coming up and why was it feeling so natural? And I realized I've been fighting myself for a long time. And that's what these figures are, that's what they're doing. They're me. All of them are me. Everything, like even when they're two separate ones, those two different mindsets playing against each other. You can do this, you can't do this. And the you can't seem like they're winning all the time, but then I'd still find a way to get back up. And I feel like the work itself is the way that I get back up. breaking it and putting it back together is the way I get back up. And so the writing, the erasing, the drawing, the breakage, all of it is possible, and it's the way I started thinking because I started boxing. And so boxing, even though I haven't done it in a while, it's still part of my practice because it kind of has to be. It's like a refuel for me. So I feel like the next time I'm in the gym, I'll get another burst of something. I don't know what yet, but I'll get another burst of something.
It's just cool to me that you like untapped something for the studio outside of it.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty far opposite of like making a painting. It's like boxing and but it's fueling it in a way, which is really cool.
The physicality of it too opened me up. So thinking about movement, thinking about the body, really the body, and how that goes and flows into the work opened me up. Yeah.
Yeah. You got one queued up?
Yeah.
I got more.
Yeah,
I'm
you
also
can go.
keeping an
You
eye
can
on
go.
time.
You
We're
can
getting close to
Okay.
8, but we've got a little more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna save my question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, are you still good at boxing? Yeah.
Am I still good at boxing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure I'm rusty, but don't test me. Is that what you're asking? It's muscle memory, so
Right.
it's not like I forgot.
Okay, we can't mess with her.
Did you ever take a video while breaking one? Maybe that's the one.
I didn't have a video of me physically breaking anything. I took video of like slowly putting it back or kind of showing the process of taking it apart after I had broken it.
Yeah.
But I wish I had, because you had even like, oh yeah, I'll video you.
Yeah.
And then I just got so, okay, so my mindset is like, you got to break this now. So I don't think about, hey, let's actually document this for yourself so you can see it. It's more like, break it, Robyn, break it. It's like, okay. So next one.
Okay. Yeah, the sound of like ceramics breaking in a community studio is just like, it's so sad.
Yeah.
And I knew like you gave a fair warning like the first time because you asked for a hammer.
Yeah.
But then every once in a while, like during the 4 months that you were doing your residency, I would hear something shatter and I'd like poke my head out of the room and it was Robyn, it's okay.
It's
There's
fine.
not like a crying student. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say this is where the pack rat in me came out. I saw somebody throw away a project that looked broken and I was like really debating if I should ask them like, do you mind if I just salvage this? Because they had thrown it in the trash. And I was going to be like, but I let it go. I let that impulse go.
You drew the line.
I did.
At the trash.
I was going to go in the trash. Because I was just thinking, it's a shame. We can fix this. Who did it? I wanted to know. I actually had a feeling I knew who it was because I had seen them with the piece. So I was just going to go over and tap them. Just like, you sure you don't want it? I can help you. But I drew the line. I didn't go in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to like, either of you want to like specifically touch on, or should we open it for questions?
I will say really fast.
Yeah.
Well, it might
You don't
not
have
be
to
that
do it fast. I don't want to rush anything.
I was going to say it might not be that fast after all. So I had 3 pieces. These here, I'm the one that kind of looks like 2 boxers in a ring. The one with the boy's face and the one with the flower. I was working on them and I got to the last stage where I was putting the luster on, put them outside. I was so excited. Go outside and they're gone. I was like, what? It's like my brain stopped working because like, why would anybody take them? And yeah, Sarah was there and she was like, this doesn't make any sense. She had seen them like 15 minutes before I went outside to go get them. And my brain was seriously like, no, but they have to be there. Did they turn invisible?
It was really close to the opening too.
Yeah. And so
like extra sad.
it was right before Christmas, I think. And I was just like, no, that can't be right. No. And I kept going back to look in the window, and they still weren't there because I thought they were just going to materialize or something. And so we ended up posting signs around. And it took me, like, that first week, I still kept looking, like, multiple times a day. Like, maybe they'll just show up again. Maybe they'll be brought back. And didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. So after, like, that week, it was like, I guess I'm going to have to let it go. I called my mom that day. I was like, this crazy thing happened. And she was like, you might just have to let it go, Robyn. It's okay. And I was like, I know, but man, and I already told y'all, I have issues letting go. And so you're in the final stage. It's the final stage. Just imagine you just have one more firing. That's it. And you just want to see what happens. And they're gone. Like, and so after thinking about that, I was like, okay, I have to just let it go. Just have to let it go. 3 weeks later, Laura sends me an email, and she's like, we found your pieces. I was like, what? What? And they were broken outside of Brooklyn Clay, like on the sidewalk, still confused as to what happened, right? So it's like, did somebody return them and somebody else was really weird and came and smashed them? Were they smashed and returned? I still don't know. My pieces lived a whole life without me. Like, before they're actually done, we usually, as artists, we expect our pieces to go out in the world, but not as you're making them. So it's like, what did you guys see? How did you experience life? And you come back all rough and all of this. Like, what did you do? Who did you fight? Who did you hurt? No, I'm just kidding. But it's like a cat that goes out and then has a fight and they come back and they're just, limping. And you're like, what happened? And you nurse it back to health. But
we should have taken a photo of the lost sign that you made, because I
have.
feel like that was so compelling and sweet that like you crushed somebody did something they shouldn't have and it broke their heart and they had to return it.
Because I'm like, did they think it wasn't finished? Because like it had the luster on it, so it was still technically toxic. If you're gonna like drink out of it, you can't do that until it's fired. So we wrote toxic on the signs, on the lost signs. So I'm hoping that, were they like mad? Oh, this is toxic. Like, what happened? But the fact is they're back. Like, and most of the pieces are like, like all of the pieces, to be honest, were there. And so who can tell a story like that, really? So that's why I'm like, this is a blessing. Like, I mean, even if they meant me harm, even if they're like, if it was something personal, like y'all mentioned, did an ex come and grab my stuff and like want to see me, like, whatever. But even if it was something that was meant for bad, there they are, repaired, beautiful, and I'm so happy to have them back. And the way that I put them back together is I'll say this, everything that's gold is where I cracked it when I first started, because they were cracked pieces. Everything that's black is what was put together after we found them shattered in the middle of the sidewalk. And so to have somebody carefully pick up all of the pieces, put them somewhere and be like, Robyn, these are for you. To me, even that was an act of care, because you knew I was gonna put them back together if I could. And so like somebody had the foresight to even be like, there's pieces out there. Do you know who's, all of it. They could have just walked past and just not had a second thought about it, or just been like, that's weird. I'm gonna go in and make my work, But it wasn't that. It was somebody put them in a place for me to fix. So these pieces, even though they lived a life that's completely separate from me, they're still precious. So,
And they're included in a show, right?
So yes, the
That's
online
the one that
show.
I mentioned, right?
Yes. So Jargonist, I have that online show that will be up, I think through March, and it's actually, those 3 pieces are the focal point of the show, and I'm just telling the story of what happened and showing the broken pieces, showing where they were broken in the street, which is also cool that you guys took pictures of that. And just being able to tell how I felt about what happened, and yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that they came back.
I know. Little worse for wear, but it's all good. We fix things around here, so.
Yeah. Let's open it up for questions. And we're hooked up to be recorded, so we'll just speak loudly, but we'll restate it just so that it's on the record.
I love your pieces. I really love the sculptural works in the window at the studio. Like, they really speak to me. I come in every day and they're like, hey, Mike, and I'm like, hey, you're beautiful. I love brass knuckles. It's like my favorite one. And to hear you talk about smashing it, I'm experiencing the preciousness and like the heartbreak already. But I'm curious about your history as someone who works with a lot of erasure in your drawing, and a little bit about this process. And I'm not sure what you're doing, and if you're comfortable sharing how it's come to life here. But are you using sgraffito, and what is the intention that you're using in that relationship of using erasure or not?
Okay.
Depending on how this process kind of comes to life.
So, okay.
Maybe are you going to restate it, or should I restate it? I got to summarize it.
You can summarize it.
Okay, so we're talking about brass knuckles, the connection of erasure between the 2D work and this piece in specific, and the sgraffito that's happening on it.
So, honestly, this is probably the most, what's the word? I get the most anxiety out of this part of the process because of the fact that I can't erase it. So I'm going in and I'm breathing and I'm just doing it. And it's like, I'll tell myself, what do I want? Do I want one figure? Do I want 2? And what do I want these figures to be doing? And that's pretty much it. I want 2 boxers. All right, let's see how they come out. I don't know how they'll be facing each other. I don't know who's going to be punching who. I kind of just start with a gesture line and I kind of go from there. And I try to see what's happening as I'm carving into the work. And with this piece in particular, I might have started like with the torsos and then came down to the lower limbs and then went up to the upper limbs. And it gives me anxiety every single time, every piece that I carve into, because I know the line is there, you gotta go with it. And so it's another kind of challenge for me that it's like, you can still do it, so just do it, you know? And so sometimes I listen to music as I do it to kind of calm down the voice that's telling me you're gonna mess it up. And sometimes I have to have complete silence and just do it from my guts and just go with it and see what happens. So that's pretty much the whole process. But yeah, there's always anxiety.
Have you ever thought about burning drawings and putting them in art?
Have I thought about burning drawings?
And putting them in art?
Ooh.
In the same way that you do your writing?
Actually, it did cross my mind. Recently, actually, because when we were kind of having a conversation about what I was burning, I thought about the drawings that I do some drawings on newsprint. Excuse me, and I thought about taking those drawings because a lot of the drawings that I do are on canvas, and I was like, I don't know about that one, but the newsprint would burn quite nicely. So I'm probably going to do something where I have a set of drawings that maybe I'll incorporate writing, maybe I won't, maybe I'll write on the back of them, or just something to get out of myself. And long story short, yes, I do think that I will burn drawings.
Can I ask what size of drawings are, like how big?
So the biggest one I've done so far has been like 9 feet tall by 6 feet, 9 feet wide, 6 feet tall. And the smaller ones are usually about the smaller drawings on canvas are usually about like 5 feet by 5 feet, the square. I do drawings, like this one is newsprint on 9.5 by 12, 12.5 by 9. So I do have those where I'm just drawing quickly, but the ones that I like the most are the big ones, and the bigger the better. So the only reason why I haven't gone bigger than the 9 feet is because my space won't allow it. And once it does, it's gonna happen.
I was thinking about the physical nature of making drawings.
Yes. Yes.
Physical nature. I mean, I don't know ceramics, but the sense I get is that they're,
Yes.
on their whole body.
Especially wheel throwing. So one of the reasons why I like drawing so big is because it's so physical. And then I have those days where I have a lot of energy that I don't know what to do with it, and then I'll go to Brooklyn Clay, get on the wheel, and whatever happens, happens. I just have to get some of this excess energy out because of the fact that it is a physical sort of motion. When I'm hand building, it doesn't get that way until it gets into a certain, a certain size. To me, hand building is very, not meticulous, but it's more relaxing than wheel throwing, which may not be the case for everybody, but I think since I'm still new at it too, there's just too many variables that could go wrong to the point where you're just trying to control everything. So that's what also makes it physical. And I'm still learning, my body in terms of the wheel. I'm more confident with hand building. But yeah, everything still is physical, and how tactile it is. I love touching the clay, feeling the clay, understanding what the clay is. It comes from the earth. What are our bodies made of? Earth, ashes to ashes. So I think that was a roundabout way of answering your question about how big my pieces are.
I'm curious about if you thought about how you use the term erasure as this physical term for breaking it, but the direct term for erasure is what comes from your drawing of erasing things. But through your process of everything, you're making a new mark. And I'm wondering if you look at it that way.
Absolutely.
The whole process is
It is new. Once something is broken, it's a new thing. I'm thinking about them as new things, because when you break something, you might lose a little bit, or who knows? Honestly, once I break brass knuckles, I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's gonna be a new piece. It's almost like a rebirth, and I'm excited for that. And I do think about the actual breakage in terms of new marks that are made, new things to see that are on the surface, and just the body of the work in a new way. And I think that also I'm thinking about myself in those terms. In other, yes.
I was just wondering, since your drawings are so large, would you ever want to get into very large ceramic pieces also? I know that's quite an undertaking, but eventually.
Eventually, do I want to get into large pieces?
I feel like know the answer already, but I just wanted to.
I think, yeah. Honestly, like looking at brass knuckles and ashes to ashes, I thought they were gonna be bigger than what they were, and they shrunk, and I was like, dang it, I did it again. So yes, I want to go. Oh yeah. It's like right now it's like, what will my space allow? And my space, and I'm also thinking about when I make things and they don't sell, so I have to put them somewhere. And so like they're actually collecting a little bit, so I don't have the space to make what I really want to make. But eventually, absolutely, the sky's the limit. Yes. Anything else?
Do you only break things with a hammer, or like do you ever throw the pieces, or?
See, at this point, it's only been a hammer, but I've also seen myself, like in my mind, a baseball bat from Louisville, so like a Louisville Slugger, you know, dropping it, seeing what happens. I have hit things before, they didn't shatter, so I was like, I wonder how much force I would have to use, and I think about these things. Punching it, but that's not gonna happen unless I have some brass knuckles. We'll see about that. I have thought about it. How thin can I make it to what? Because right now I'm also controlling my thicknesses. These would hurt. I'd have to start learning how to, you know, get a little thinner. But yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of the breaking part kind of becoming like ceremonious, like as like an opportunity for performance or something for you.
I do think about performance a lot, and with the performance that I told you all about earlier, it was just something that I literally just wanted to punch my face. And I know that that sounds like really a certain way, but I had a very specific idea of what that meant for me. It wasn't just me punching my face. And so I wanted to kind of grow organically, and that came about very organically. And so I'm still thinking of more ways to perform these works, these pieces, and what that means, because I could put something together, but I want it to have meaning from every single angle. And I'm not quite there yet, but I know I'm getting there. I'm going in that direction.
I'm like looking at the screen and then looking at your collection of pieces down here. I see an aspect of like every single part of your work on the screen represented in your pieces, like down to like earth tones and like the drawing aspects. And I'm just wondering if that is unconscious or if it's intentional or both.
I think that the way that the drawings connect with the ceramics is, as far as everything that comes together and how cohesive it is both. I think it's both intention, and I think it's also, you know, an artist making work from a place that is the same in two different mediums, and thinking that she doesn't know what she's doing, but eventually it shows that she does. But when it comes to the earth tones, that's definitely a conscious decision. I think red is the color that's the most, it's not even out of the box, red is earthy, but it's black, white, red, and like tan, because I use a lot of raw canvas when I'm drawing. And then I wanted to bring those same sort of colors into my ceramic practice. But when it comes to form, oftentimes I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going with it. But the forms do come from a place, because I do draw and I do make work in other ways. So it does make sense that that's what would kind of transform itself into a three-dimensional space, even though I can't really tell you technically how I'm doing it. So, yes.
I have a Yankees Louisville Slugger. If you want to
We'll talk. We'll talk.
Robyn, what I particularly like about your work is your historic nature of your work. And I see it connected to like the Venus of Willem and lots of pieces, you know, throughout history. And also it's very feminist, and I'm really getting a female form from everything. I loved your story about the broken pieces. I had a job once where I restored pottery and stoneware, and I didn't really think about it as creating a new story, but it really did do that. It did actually tell a new story because it was my hands now pulling these, you know, shards together. And so I really like that idea, and you've made me think about a lot of things about being an artist, so thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I had no idea you had that history. That's amazing. This is amazing. That's so cool.
Because even when you think about restoration and antiquity and past, it has its own life, obviously, but when we relate it to ourselves, even when we're just studying it, we can only come from it from our own lens.
Right.
So you're projecting your own life and experiences onto it, so when you're touching it, you're giving it a new life, even though it has another life. It's all very interesting.
And also you're using, I mean, in my case, I was using modern materials to restore this. And it was actually, if it was solid stone, it never was put together. It was a subtractive process.
Right. So you're that's another step. I get excited about this stuff in case you didn't notice, but yes.
Well, we can keep talking off the record. Yeah, we're gonna have some wine and hang out, so please stay around. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Robyn for making the work that she did during the residency. It was, and I'm so glad that you're still going to be working at Brooklyn Clay, working at the studio. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity because I was in a place before I got this residency, and so now being able to see everything that my brain was working on and having the space to do it was like amazing. And thank you, Prinston, for also being here. And
thank you.
I know I ask you all the time, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? So thank you for saying yes.